guitar jam, and that's where we're headed. Straight up to Butte, Montana, singing, Lord, I was born a rambling.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And let me start by thanking Al Cardenas, the chairman of the American Conservative Union and a fellow South Floridian. He's a man who has been fighting in the trenches at the conservative movement for 4 decades as an attorney, an activist, a candidate, a state Republican Party chairman, and above all else, an advocate for liberty and American exceptionalism. And the conference that you're going to enjoy this weekend is made possible only through his hard work, that dedication, and the team at ACU. So please make sure you thank them for that. As well, do we have our veterans in the house? And if so, allow us to recognize you, the defenders of our liberty and freedom. Now, I'll give it to you straight. Last November, we did take one on the jaw. But this movement and this fight is not determined by the punches that we take. We're defined by how quickly we pull ourselves off the mat and our perseverance. There's no shortage of people telling us what conservatism cannot accomplish, what we can't do, how we cannot connect, how we must change our values to fit the times. Well, ladies and gentlemen, I want to tell you that that truly is a bunch of malarkey. Last time I checked, a bended knee is not, nor shall it ever be, a conservative tradition. There's an old story of Winston Churchill, a young man up and coming in politics, and he chose to grow a mustache to look a little bit more mature. A woman approached him and said, "Mr. Churchill, I approve of neither your politics nor your mustache." And Churchill replies, "Ma'am, you are unlikely to come in contact with either of them." Sir Winston didn't know it, but he was channeling every black conservative American. Folks, I'm speaking from experience when I tell you that there's nothing on this green earth that a liberal progressive fears more than a black American who wants a better life and a smaller government. The republic I love, the republic I risk my life to defend, the values I hold dear, the integrity that we all share, these do not know prejudice and they do not accept partiality. John Marshall spoke of a constitution that was colorblind, that neither knows nor tolerates classes amongst its citizens. So how can you not romanticize America? How can you not idealize this great land of dreams? Think of 2 men standing on a corner. One with $1,000 worth of Burberry clothing on his back, the other with nothing more but a little paper in his wallet and a hope for a better future. Conservatives look at both and see the magnificence of freedom and potential. Conservatives understand that there is one dream realized and then there's another taking its baby steps. Liberals cannot look at those 2 men without thinking that the rich man prospered only by dipping his hand into the pocket of the poor man. And like it says of the pretenders in Isaiah chapter 29, the American dream is something that they honor with their lips, but their hearts are far from it. Conservatives understand that the power that binds our republic together is fierce independence held high on the shoulders of compassion. We believe in humility and integrity, the spirit of one people bound together under God. We understand that the Constitution was written to control and regulate the government, not the people. I am sick and tired. I am sick and tired of hearing that it is our moral duty to serve the state, because conservatives believe that it is our moral duty to serve our fellow man, regardless of race, sex, affiliation, or creed. And when we serve, we believe that it is the state's duty to get out of the way. But unfortunately, some of our American brothers are lost in the woods. They have no compass, they have no map, and their GPS satellites are inoperable. When more Americans prefer freebies to freedom, these great United States will become a fertile ground for tyranny. When did ask not what your country can do for you become ask only what your country will give you? Look at California. It's hard to describe that state as being in anything other than a depression. Californians asked government, what can you do for us? And they got their answer. And every year, thousands of Californians flee that populous paradise for tax-eased, small government oases of America's red states. California is falling victim to the same snake oil that President Obama sold America during this past election. We were told compassion comes not from generosity, but from compliance. We're told kindness means raiding a man's hard-earned wages and sending it off to Washington, D.C., so that they, not you, may dole it out in courtesies and indulgences. I'm tired of these insufferable lectures of progressivism, because you know what this conservative says? Compassion comes from a choice, and not the liberal definition of a choice. The choice to say, I can do with a little less so my brother can have a little more. The choice to volunteer with wounded warriors, to adopt an orphan child, to pass on that new iPad so that you can give to your church or to your hospital. But how can those choices exist if we don't have the freedom to make them? And where's the kindness when a faceless bureaucrat thumps a red stamp on a monthly food ration? Where is love exchanged? Where is the love felt when a state administrator stuffs a welfare check into an outgoing mail? I'm tired of liberals dividing this country up into little groups, setting them upon each other, breeding spite and envy, and then having the nerve to say and accuse conservatives of hatred. It's sad, and it's said in Washington, D.C., is 60 miles surrounded by reality. And out in the real world, I see conservatives giving to more charity than liberals, even though their paychecks may be smaller. In the real world, I see conservatives volunteering at adoption agencies, at churches, at bake sales, and the local American Legion Post, while the only charity a progressive sends is a smug sermon on fair share and what fairness is. I'm a conservative because I believe we are here on this earth to do a little more than crawl through life, comfortable in the cradle of the government, excess, and oblivious to the duties required to keep this republic standing. When putting an ink quill to sheepskin 200 years ago, our founders declared independence so that we could unlock our potential, not lock us into mediocrity. If this was the point of the bold American experiment, then that controlled existence could have been maintained under patriarchal government, and we could have done better under the crown. See, I'm a conservative because I believe in peace, real peace, and not peace of mind. I'm a conservative because I believe and understand that real peace comes from the Marine Corps, not the Peace Corps. America is more than a government. It is more than an idea. America is more than just a republic. We either keep believing it or we stop living it. Our Constitution sprung forth from the oppressive yoke of tyranny. Some think the battle for this idea ended at Yorktown or with the Treaty of Paris. Make no mistake, the wisdom and sovereignty enshrined in that great document is steady under assault. And when I raised my hand as a young Army lieutenant and swore an oath to that Constitution, it was to defend these great United States of America against all enemies, foreign and domestic. And John Adams said, there is never a democracy that did not commit suicide. Well, and I hope you are not ready to give up on America yet. I'm not ready to abandon my oath and my values. I'm not ready to resign this free land of free people to self-inflicted collapse. But we cannot just give lip service to our principles. Now is the time we need a new generation of leaders willing to pick up the torch and carry conservatism high and proud into the 21st century. The American story is defined by its generations. Whenever this great democratic experiment seems condemned to become a minor mention in history's appendix, a brief line next to the Roman and British empires, a generation rises above fear, above chaos, and frees us from fear and doubt. We forget that from time to time, we forget that our freedom was born of fire, from the loaded muskets of militiamen at Concord, where a single shot echoed around the world, to the smoky fields of Antietam and Shiloh, to the windswept French coast, where our greatest generation liberated the continent. We are made of stern stuff. When British tyranny besieged our colonies, we survived. When flames danced from the White House windows in 1812, we endured. When the Union split itself into two, almost perishing from this earth, we rebuilt. When the soup lines of the Depression stretched down shuttered city blocks, we recovered. When an unstoppable Nazi regime and war machine threatened to extinguish the light of free nations, we triumphed. And ladies and gentlemen, when Barack Obama packs his bags and beats a hasty retreat back to Chicago, we will persevere. Leadership comes from little things that turn into big things. During the Civil War, a quiet, ordinary language professor left the comfort of Bowdoin College and joined the Army. He took charge of a regiment, found himself on a little hill near Gettysburg, overrun by the full fury of General Lee's army. Low on ammunition, with enemies all around, Colonel Joshua Lawrence Chamberlain found his courage and his purpose in a single command: I ordered the bayonet. Chamberlain charged, his men followed, and the course of history pivoted with him. Victory for the Union, freedom for the slaves. And that quiet, average language professor had the Medal of Honor hung from his neck and went on to serve as the Republican governor of Maine. He was a giant of a man in a time when America needed giants. Patriots, in this 237th year of our republic, on this day, liberty once again needs giants. When our freedoms are quietly and peacefully rubbed out, when the darkness of statism creeps into our lives, when government grows beyond reasonable control, we need a giant with the courage to order that bayonet. We need giants when Washington stops believing that freedom comes from God and starts believing it comes from the White House. We need men like William F. Buckley, who said that the best defense against usurpatory government is an assertive citizenry. We need women like Jean Kirkpatrick, who warned that it is a fundamental mistake to believe that salvation, justice, or virtue comes from merely human institution. If there is one constant in our short history, it is that this great republic rises and falls on the backs of generations and giants. When they are weak, we falter. When they are sturdy, we triumph. Like you, I consider myself part of a unique generation of Americans, a new generation that must continue the tradition of principled conservative leadership once embodied by conservative titans. Ronald Reagan, Barry Goldwater, Bill Buckley, Milton Friedman, Jack Kemp, Jean Kirkpatrick, Paul Ryrick, Robert Bork, all have passed their responsibilities on to us. And this proud tradition of conservative leadership, a fellowship that includes each of you, holds one principle above all others: fidelity to the letter of the spirit of our nation's two founding documents, the Constitution and the Declaration of Independence. And as we go forward, we must understand what our duties and responsibilities are. A few weeks back, President Obama trotted out a handful of emergency responders and talked about how badly Republican policies were hurting them. But let us not forget that a company in Tennessee will have to lay off 100 workers because of Obamacare's new tax on medical devices. A doctor works his way to prosperity by inventing amazing new tools that have saved lives across the world, but government regulations have become so strict he has to fly to Europe to test them. Down in Virginia, there's a man who started a Chick-fil-A to provide food for the 9 people living under his roof. He paid his employees above the minimum wage and treated them like family. Now he has to fire or demote them to part-time because he can't keep his business in the black while Obamacare is on the books. Every household in America owes an average of $135,000 on the national debt, and $90,000 of that figure comes from our entitlement programs. And in 2009, the president stood in front of the American people and promised he'd cut the deficit in half. But he promptly turned around and, without a single Republican vote, forced a $1.2 trillion entitlement program on the American people. I suppose that's what we call new math. What we must understand, we saw an example of true leadership. When you think about in 1979, Margaret Thatcher stepped into an unthinkable unemployment situation, a bankrupt treasury, trade unions on the warpath, staggering inflation, stagnant economy, and a little violent war in the South Atlantic Sea. She never blamed her woes on the 10 years prior of the Labour Party rule. With that indestructible spirit, Lady Thatcher got Britain working again. When we talk about giants, Lady Thatcher, the Iron Lady, is a representation of that giant. When we think of George Washington, he represented that giant. The trinity of George Washington of duty, God, and country. But instead, what do we have as a trinity coming out of the White House? We have dependence of servants and state. And what nation shall we leave to the next generation? Will refugees now from repression stop dreaming of the dream of our founding fathers? Will they move on to greener pastures and freer lands? Or will they see something different? See, right now, I see a fifth-generation coal miner in West Virginia who has to abandon his life's work because some middle management bureaucrat in Washington thinks he puts too much smoke in the air. I see a soldier with 4 combat tours of duty, a Bronze Star, and scraps of metal in his leg, forced to quietly hang up his uniform 2 years before retirement so some insignificant government administrator can keep his job. Ladies and gentlemen, we cannot continue in this way. George Washington told us happiness and moral duty are inseparably connected. Now, we talk about Reagan and Thatcher and Adam, but talking is not enough, ladies and gentlemen. We have to put our deeds, our words to deeds. And in putting our words to deeds, we can create the next generation of great leaders. We can create the next generation of Marco Rubios, the next generation of Paul Ryans, the next generation of Marsha Blackburns. We simply cannot be a party of accountants, of dollars and cents and bottom lines. This next generation cannot allow righteous concern over the national debt to mask the benevolent purpose behind all of those worries. We are for freedom. We are for liberty. We want hope for the impoverished. We want America to shine as a beacon of light and life for the world. And it is conservatism, not the hollow promises of the welfare state, that will get us there. Will we have a leader that will stand up and mentor young minority youth, like my friend Nicholas Buford down at Valdosta State College? Will we open up soup kitchens? Will we show people the superiority of our message? The thing is now, let's not continue with lectures because liberals are better at lecturing. Let's be the party of action. Let's be a group of people that look for deeds. Deeds and not words will paint this country red from California coast to the Rocky Shores. This conference, this audience, these values, all jealously guard conservative identity from liberal wolves in sheep's clothing. But at its core, we are gathered here today to recognize and be inspired by leadership, by deeds, not words, by action, not empty refrains. We gather here today from bronze wheat fields to silver-peaked mountains, from the oak pews of the neighborhood church to the lofty skyscrapers of every city in these great United States. We gather from every curve, every height, every low, every bend, every summit in America. We are bound not by race, not by sex, not by preference or by creed, but by an idea. We are here to offer a simple benediction for you, and we talk about this next generation. If we go to Paul's letter to the Romans, he says, the time has come for you to wake from your sleep. Salvation is nearer to us now than when we first believed. So my fellow conservatives, the night is gone. The day is at hand. Cast off the works of darkness and put on the full armor of light. I welcome you to CPAC. I welcome you to the next generation. May God bless you all.